Hi, Gary.
Hi, Guy.
Now, there's something I want. We've got this amazing guest today, John Oates. Now, when I asked you about Abandoned Luncheonette, I said, did you really know that? And you said, not until the hits, till late, till later. Yeah. And there's a funny thing. It's this weird anomaly in my musical education in that because I knew, and we've talked about this before, when you meet sort of people from outside your circle who are more sophisticated and have woks and garlic pate and stuff like that. And I had this thing of I was introduced to this older crowd, people who smoked pot and took honey in their tea and stuff like that. And they were into this American music that we didn't know about. Hall & Oates, Loggins and Messina, Bob Seger, all stuff, which just
Charlie Gillett would have played it. Right?
Exactly, but we didn't exist to us at all. No. And I'm saying, and it's an interesting. So Abandoned Luncheonette has always been to me this really important, but it was a complete anomaly because everything else was rock music, except for this one thing.
Yeah, but were you aware of She's Gone? Because that was on that album.
Yeah, oh no, absolutely, yeah.
And it's what's going to be interesting talking to John is how this was in a way an act that developed in the 70s, quite deep into like 1973, deep into the past.
72.
We're making all these albums in sort of a preparation for this massive band that was going to appear in the 80s and be seen as being so 80s. I sent She's Gone to a friend the other day who's a musician, and just reminding them, isn't this such a great tune? And listen to the production here. 73, and he went, "You're kidding."
I know, it's right. Yeah,
She's Gone is an 80s record, surely.
Because just because the sound of it.
6 number ones there in America. I've not been doing Bill Frindle. That's all I'm going to say.
That's good. Biggest selling duo in American music history.
There's so much to talk about. So we're doing a very short intro.
Very short intro.
Because John.
And I'm sorry I hijacked it.
An amazing story,
and I can't wait to get him on.
Welcome to the Rockonteurs.
Okay, guys, I'm ready.
You know this thing about the 10,000 hours of experience? When we recorded Arnold Lane, we'd done about 50 hours.
I love the fact he's dancing to it naked. Like, it's so hedonistic. It's so liberating. How brilliant.
We knew the moment that the 5 of us were in a room, like the first 3 chords, was like, we finally all found each other.
I'm in a band now. It's called Roxy Music.
He started playing that as his main guitar. So it was his main guitar, so I just said, you can have it.
Thank you guys for still being around, still making music, still being into it, and doing this podcast. It's fabulous.
Everyone in the band was completely disengaged from their partners while we made Rumours.
That's a big tune for sure. I actually wrote that originally for Tina Turner.
The Rockonteurs podcast with Gary Kemp and Guy Pratt.
Keep on rocking!
John, thank you for coming to see us at Rockonteurs.
Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It's amazing. I mean, your music has been in our lives so importantly, hasn't it?
So importantly. I've got to say, Abandoned Luncheonette, for me, it's like an anomaly in my early life. It was just a gang of people I knew who were a bit older, who knew this American music. And Abandoned Luncheonette, to me, I would say is as important a record as Hunky Dory. It's one of those albums that's just there forever. You can always put it on.
And in that sense, it's a kind of similar album in that it was one of those albums that got discovered by people looking back after you'd already been successful elsewhere.
That's high praise. And also, I was a huge fan of Hunky Dory. I listened to that album. In fact, I was shocked when he became Ziggy. It was such a departure. But, that taught me a lesson right early on. It taught me that you don't have to stay in one place, which is, I think, part of my
that's
credo
very much your
forward.
journey. And I'd say the Hall & Oates journey through the 70s especially is fantastic, the ground you covered. And then the 80s you sort of find your big pop group. But then, yes, for you, as we'll talk about, you've been on a fantastic kind of rediscovery.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about Reunion, because that's why you're here, right? You're here to do a show.
I don't mind. I'm an open book. I have a past. I have a 50 plus year past, which is incredible to think about, really. I'm in a new phase. I mean, maybe I hope it's not the final chapter, but it feels like it's time to. There's no more time to rehearse. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, but you're living in Nashville, right? So there's Americana that's around you.
Yeah, I've
been all those musicians,
almost 15 years now.
Picked up on.
Yeah, it's been a new lease on my musical life. It really has. Because before I met Daryl, I started playing guitar at 5 years old, and so by the time I met him at 19 or so, I had a musical life. I was performing. I was doing all sorts of things, and what I was doing was basically acoustic-based folk oriented blues, American roots music. And when we got together, we basically, pooled our individual, influences and created something, new, or at least new to us, original for us. So basically now where I am in my life, it's just, and I think, I've noticed other people doing the same thing. It seems like it's in the air. Going back to my early musical DNA to kind of rediscover myself, and hence the name Reunion, in a sense, reuniting with the guy and the musician that I was way back when.
And who are those musicians that you think have directly influenced this album?
Well, I really like to say that I was born at the right time. I'm old enough to remember music before rock and roll. My parents' World War II generation.
I've heard you say that before. I think that's a really, really key thing.
It is.
It's not about that Ed Sullivan show.
No, I didn't see the Beatles on Ed Sullivan pick up a guitar. I was already playing. But, my parents played for me. They played big band, swing, that kind of stuff. And so that's the music I heard. And when rock and roll started in the early 50s, I was just old enough to realize something new had happened. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty, that's kind of an important moment, I think. So, I was... of course, affected by the early rockers, the Chuck Berrys and the, Elvis, Little Richard, Everly Brothers. And then as time moved on, I really, really got turned on to the kind of the folk revival that happened in the early 60s. I had a very good friend of mine whose older brother went off to college in the South. And when he came back from school, he brought all these albums that I had never heard, but it was Mississippi John Hurt, Doc Watson, and the early Joan Baez, early Dylan, and people like Hetty West, and these really, authentic American folk performers, basically, and blues as well. And
we were kind of reclaiming America, in a politically different style, right?
Yeah. Well, the college kids were rediscovering this and bringing a lot of these performers, like Mississippi John Hurt, for instance. He recorded in the late 1920s, early 1930s on OK Records, and then he worked on a cattle farm until he was rediscovered in 1960 or 61. And then he died in 66. So he was only, but this incredible opportunity to see, and I saw a lot of these performers firsthand. And at the same time, I was going to the Uptown Theater, which was part of the R&B Chitlin circuit, was known as the Chitlin circuit. Right. The Apollo Theater, the Howard Theater in D.C., and all the greats of soul music were coming through Philadelphia. So I was in the vortex of this incredible thing where I could see these folk performers and I could see the great R&B performers. And to me, it all kind of blended together, and it was this continuum of American music. And that's kind of who I am. And so that's kind of what I'm getting back to.
Yeah, you used Jim Crochet's son.
Yeah, I co-wrote the song Reunion with A.J. Croce, who I had never met before. Yeah.
I never know if it's crochet or crochet.
Crochet.
No, crochet is what you do.
Yes, of course. Really? Okay. I didn't know he has. I know he's very talented, but I had no idea.
He's teasing me. So that because Jim. Well, Croce is
some serious songwriting DNA there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
he and I were thrown into the same dressing room at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, which is one of the holy houses of music, and we never met, but we hit it off instantly. And I knew, just from talking to him, I knew he just felt right. And when I came up with the idea for Reunion, which was inspired by my dad, who's 100,
he's still alive.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic! Congratulations.
Oh, yeah, but thank you.
Raise a glass to him.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. We thought we were going to lose him a few months ago, and he was talking about reuniting with Mom, who had passed away earlier. And I thought about it, and I thought, that's a true reunion. That is a reuniting, and that kept rolling around in my head, as a songwriter. And I said, well, and then I realized that I was in a sense reuniting with myself, which I said earlier. And that's where it came from. And I wrote this line. It said, "The lights at the party are bright, but I'm leaving early tonight." And to me, that kind of summed it all up. It was a line that was poignant, and it really it it spoke for what I was feeling at the moment. And so I got together with AJ, and we talked about old records, and he has his father's extensive record collection, like his record collection.
Because he must have only been like 2 when his dad was killed? Or?
Yeah, well, he was young. He was a little older, I believe. He's older than you think he is.
Oh, okay.
But he has his father's record collection, and it's incredible. Goes back to the early 1920s, and I just felt a kindred spirit with him, and he's an amazing piano player. And so we wrote it together, and he was kind of the right collaborator to pull it together for me.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like it's not a million miles from kind of what Robert Plant is doing these days. I wonder if you cross paths with him.
Exactly. I've seen him a number of times with Alison Krauss, and I actually work with Alison Krauss's son, who's a producer and an engineer. But they're great. Just look at the roots of a lot of the British rockers. It's these early American R&B and folk blues roots. That.
But because when we
took them wherever.
Because you're talking about this amazing musical heritage in Philadelphia. Because when we think of Philly,
you think of Gamble. You think of Gamble and Huff.
Well, we were in Philly playing a couple of few years ago.
We had a pilgrimage down to Sigma.
It's a car park.
Well, it's a car park.
There's a sign there.
It's not a great photo opportunity, if truth be told.
That's very sad. I mean, think about that. Well, I'm not going to say anything about people in Philadelphia, but maybe that should have been a monument for sure, a historic, at least more than a plaque, right?
Because the Philly thing comes out.
A nicer car park. I mean,
the Philly comes out of the German immigrants that were once there, who created that orchestra and were musically
and English.
And the English.
I think what people don't realize about Philadelphia is that it's the first northern city north of the Mason-Dixon line during the Civil War. So it was the demarcation line between the North and the South. And you had a lot of the African American black Southerners trying to escape the South. Well, as they moved north, the moment they got over the Mason-Dixon line, they didn't need to go any further. They stopped. So you have this incredible Afro-American black culture in Philadelphia, but with Southern ties, a lot of Southern ties. And then you have the English, European, more sophisticated Western culture,
bringing their orchestras,
bringing orchestra and
coming around here, bringing their orchestras,
bringing their orchestras. But you have this incredible mixture, and I think that's really the essence of what Philadelphia music is about.
Well, one thing that always strikes me in Philadelphia, because I love Philadelphia, I love visiting Philadelphia.
Yeah, you like the cheesesteak, really.
I love the cheesesteak. I love the cheesesteak, and it's
and a soft pretzel.
Don't start me on Steve's King of Steaks. It's got an apostrophe. It's like there's a King of Steaks, and Steve owns him. I don't think but things like the museums, the incredible art collections and all that stuff. And the one thing I think that you realise when you're there is just how rich it was. Like Detroit, you've got to remember that's in the last century, well, century before, I guess. All those people flocking there, and there was just so much money there, but infrastructure.
I also think that it's interesting what you say and why that kind of music is coming out of there. Why you came out of there, a white act, really doing so well on black radio and playing. I know you don't like the term, but it's what became called Blue Eyed Soul, but. It is that there was such a strong presence from both camps, as if you like, if I can say that, from white music and black music intermingling.
It was very integrated. Back in the 60s, if you saw a session, even the early Gamble and Huff sessions, very much integrated. There were a lot of white players along with the black players. And it was kind of before Black Pride in the early 70s really became more, it really kind of affected and created more of a division between white and black. So Philadelphia was a very integrated city back when I was growing up.
So you could like country music, say, but you could also like...
well, I didn't tell anybody.
Soul music.
No.
But did you? It's not a town that would have a big disco sucks movement.
Well, it's funny, but Philadelphia is so parochial. I mean, when the Beatles came out, they wouldn't play the Beatles' early music on Philadelphia radio because you couldn't dance to it. That was the rationale. I mean, how crazy is that?
It's a fair point. Because the thing is, when you two have started, you were both in separate bands. I mean, you heard this stuff.
The Masters. I heard the Masters.
And
Oh my God, it's like Curtis
But it's so sophisticated right off the bat. And where did you find all these people?
Well, Daryl and I listened
How
to
were you paying them?
Daryl and I grew up 20 miles apart in two small towns outside of Philadelphia, and we didn't know each other, but we listened to there was 2 radio stations. So we listened to the exact same music. So when we met, we had this immediate musical vocabulary that we could, reference basically. And so, that's what made it happen. But I was playing, I was playing with horns in a horn band when I was 13 years old. So.
What?
Yeah, I mean, that was just what we did.
It was just knowing someone with a horn
Were they
when
all
you were
your
13.
age?
Is that,
Were they all your age, or
the
were they
school
older?
clarinet?
We would pick the kids, who could play, whoever could play. But
because it's a great record, you can hear it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Can't you? What's it called?
I Need Your Love.
I Need Your Love. No, there's two.
Except for the flat singing, which is another characteristic of a lot of Philadelphia records. I mean, listen to the Intruders.
But then, how did you meet, you and Daryl, at that point?
Well, as you said, I had a group called the Masters. He had a group called the Temptones, which was basically...
They were called the Temptones. Sounds like a great name, but that was to do with the name of the college you were both at?
No.
Okay.
We did go to Temple University.
Right.
We didn't meet.
And they liked the Temptations.
Daryl they were huge fans of the Temptations. And the Temptations kind of took Daryl's group under their wing, especially Paul, who was in the Temptations. He actually bought them suits, I believe, to kind of... class them up a little bit. So I mean, we just had we both loved the same kind of music, and we bonded over a lot of that. But we had records out in 1967, singles that were being played on the R&B radio, so we were aware of each other. And then we were both invited to go to a disc jockey had a teenage dance, which was called a record hop in those days. And it was in West Philly in a kind of a bad neighborhood. And we were backstage with Howard Tate, who had a song called Look at Granny Run Run. I don't know if you remember that one. You looked that one up. And the Five Stair Steps, a vocal group out of Chicago, who also had a hit at the time. And a gang fight broke out. So we went into the service elevator and went down to the street, and that's how we met. And I know it sounds almost too good to be true, but
that's the movie. That's the
true.
scene. Right?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
But you just go, oh, come on, this is a terrible movie. This couldn't possibly have happened.
Because the other thing that was in the system and DNA, if you like, an affiliate at the time was doo-wop.
Yeah.
That was
Daryl was very influenced by doo-wop, street corner singing.
But you can hear
you can
it
tell
all
that.
of
Yeah,
the
you can
all
absolutely
of
tell
that.
it.
And I was too, to a lesser extent, but I'm very, very aware of it. But doo-wop was huge in Philadelphia. And, kids neighborhood kids forming vocal groups, and then, singing in the subway where the natural reverb was kind of a little bit better, so.
What is quite extraordinary. So you two meet. I mean, I think, wasn't there a funny story about, was it Daryl's sister having an apartment?
Oh, no, that's it's a little bit later.
Is that later? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, Daryl and I knew each other from late 67 until, we knew each other, we hung around, but we were doing completely different things. I was still going to college. I graduated from college in 70, and I wanted
What did you study?
Journalism.
No.
Because it was easy. Gave me time for music. I love writing. It doesn't matter what kind of writing it is. So it was very easy for me. And I wanted to go to Europe because, my mother's side of the family is Italian. My father's side is English and Spanish. And so anyway, I wanted to tour Europe. It was like a goal in my life. So I took a backpack and I had $400 and I sold a motorcycle and a guitar and I went to Europe. And when I ran out of money, I was in Amsterdam and I needed to get back. And when I got back, I had subletted my apartment to Daryl's sister and her boyfriend while I was away for the 4 months of the summer. And when I got back, I went to my apartment and it had a padlock on the door with a note that the rent hadn't been paid, and that was it. And I was like, and all my stuff was in there. Well, of course, I didn't have much, but. And so I took my guitar and backpack, went back on the street, and went a few blocks down to where Daryl was living. And I knocked on the door and I said, hey man, your sister, what's going on? And he said, oh, don't worry about it. You can just stay here. So I moved into the third floor of this little tiny house. It was almost like a townhouse. And that's where he had his electric piano, and he had a fold-out couch. And so I slept on the fold-out couch, and of course he would come up, and he'd be playing around with the piano, and I'd pull my guitar out. And that's how it started, really.
Wow.
Did his sister come round much? Was that awkward?
His sister's great.
Did you see yourself as a songwriting team at that point that might be making songs for other people? And I say that because, Gamble and Huff are living in the same area. Tom Bell, who's writing some of the most amazing soul songs ever. Bet You By Golly Wow was my first slow dance, by the way.
Tom Bell is a genius.
Did you meet them? Did you know them?
Of course, yeah. We worked on the 4th floor of the Schubert Theater building, and they were on the 6th floor. So, of course, we've seen Chubby Checker and all the older Philadelphia artists as well. But Daryl and I really didn't see ourselves as a group or a duo.
Because are you still in separate groups at this point?
Well, he was doing some studio work. I was playing some blues bands. I was still playing folk clubs, and we saw what we were doing together as an alternative to the other stuff that wasn't really working very well. And he wasn't happy. I wasn't happy with what I was doing. So we said, well, let's just play some songs together and see what happens. So we started playing art galleries and coffee houses in the little hippie neighborhood where we lived. And little by little, we got a following and finally got a record contract, which that's yet a whole other story. So.
Is it really? Because you bump into Arif Mardin.
Because that's the jump. That's for me the jump.
That is the jump.
Arif Mardin?
Have we got there too soon, by the way? I don't think we've got there too soon. I think we've described what eventually becomes Hall & Oates with this DNA that's in the background of this soup of
Do you
music.
want to go? Are we going down that road?
Well, I think we are leaving. We're not leaving Philadelphia.
No, we're not yet.
No, not yet.
We were, as I said, we worked for a producer who I will go unmentioned. But he was a very old school rock and roll kind of guy, and I think we were working for $25 a week to be staff songwriters, and for me that was huge because I could buy a cheesesteak and a Coke, and that was about it.
That's all you need.
That's right. And on the 6th floor, Gamble and Huff were just getting started, so we knew each other.
This is like the Brill Building of Philadelphia.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
On a very much smaller scale, but yes. And so Daryl and I were staff songwriters. This guy would take us to New York to audition as songwriters with the various publishing companies. And every time we'd play somewhere, like these little showcases, everyone was like, "You guys are great. How come you don't have a record deal?" And we're like, "Yeah, we should have a record deal." And what we didn't realize was the kind of business stuff that was going on in the background. Of course, we were totally naive. Of course, I'm still totally naive if you look at my history. But he was making outrageous requests money-wise, and no one wanted to touch us. So we got very frustrated. Daryl and I pooled our money together. We flew to California. Never been to California before, but we had a publishing contact out there. I'm really shortening this up because this could go on for days. And
that's up to you.
Yeah, okay.
we love this.
All right. Well, so we go to California, go to L.A. Didn't realize that in L.A. you need a car, so that we were in some little sleazy motel on Santa Monica Boulevard, just like walking around. I'm surprised we didn't get arrested because you're not allowed to walk in L.A. Right. Anyway, so the publishing guy, a really cool guy, took us to meet a guy named I can't remember his name now. I should. Anyway, he lived in West Hollywood at a little cottage there, and he was friends with Ahmet Ertegun at Atlantic Records. And he said, "This is a guy you should know." We said, so we were up for anything at that point. So we went over there. He had a little piano. I brought my guitar, and we went into his garden, backyard, and we played some songs for him. So he started laughing, and we were playing songs, and he started laughing. We're thinking, oh, this is not going well. And he said, what are you guys for real? And we said, yeah. And he goes, well, what are you doing playing in my backyard? How come you don't have a record contract? I said, because no one will sign us. He goes, I'm going to sign you. And he called Ahmet Ertegun and said, these guys are coming back to New York, and I want you to meet them. So they set up an appointment. We went to New York. We went into a room with with Arif Mardin, Jerry Greenberg, who was the president of Atlantic, and we played our songs. And Arif Mardin stood up and said, "I will produce them." You know, he was Turkish. You know, I will produce them. And we were like, "Yeah, this is good." And so we were on Atlantic Records.
You at this point writing together, or do you bring in? You've got separate songs. How is the writing process?
We were writing together. We were doing what we've always done: writing separately and together. Right. And sometimes we would function, you know, a lot of times would function as a editor almost for each other.
But because something I would say, and please don't take this the wrong way, because it is absolutely a compliment, is that it's like technically it's almost went backwards. The songs you start with, those first albums, are so sophisticated and so complicated and so polished, and it's like you actually sort of strip it down as you go through your career.
Yeah, well,
it's like you started at the top with all the chops.
That's skill, isn't it? When you realize what you need this and you need this, and that's you know.
Well, you know,
no fat.
Daryl was, he went to music college. He was obviously, sophisticated as a keyboard player, a piano player,
and
harmony,
little key changes and stuff. Show tuney, jazzy.
He's brilliant when it comes to that kind of stuff. And we had Arif Mardin. I mean, you talk about starting at the top, right? Mm-hmm. And the beauty of what his genius and skill as a producer was that he would allow us to be ourselves. But he was always there. Like, he would always make a joke. He goes, "Now I put on my producer's cap," which meant we had to listen to him at that point. But he was letting us just go wild. But at the same time, surrounding us with some of the greatest musicians in New York. You know, we had, on She's Gone, the sax solo, that's Joe Farrell.
Yeah.
You know, we had Bernard Purdie on drums.
Yeah.
Come on.
Purdie Shuffle.
Yeah, anything, and literally, and I'll a little side note, because you guys will appreciate this. You know how it is with a drummer? The drummer's either driving the bus or it's kind of like, not quite working, right? He would, whenever he counted off a song, there was no question about where it should be. It was exactly perfect. Mm-hmm. And all you had to do was ride this kind of rhythmic musical wave, which it just makes you play. It's so easy to play, and you know what I'm talking about.
But he has,
especially as a bass player.
I'm just saying, actually, just recently, I've just done now. For the first time in my life, I just spent a week playing with Steve Gadd.
Oh, there you go.
And it was
So you felt that, right?
You feel that where his bass drum actually wounds you. It's like,
well, it's just there for you. It's so there.
Perfect.
It's because he's got a great skill as well. If you can deliver it, you can have a ballad, a very slow song, but Purdie will be playing something double time underneath, but never gets in the way.
Yeah, and it's also, without getting too technical, it's also that very, very... Sure, let's do it. I'll go there all day.
Yeah.
It's that infinitesimal, rhythmic place where they put their snare drum, which is just far on the backside of the beat.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
It's an indescribable thing that some people have it, some people don't. And
this is the problem now when people do drums and it's programmed.
Well,
they just stick it, even when they're recorded, and they stick them all on the grid.
Yeah, everything's on the grid. It's which has a thing in the 80s. That
Private Eyes probably wouldn't have survived without that grid.
Yeah, but that's a sound in itself, right? Yeah. But for me, especially playing with live musicians, and I found that in Nashville. I found my musical tribe in Nashville where I can find the players who give me that same thing, which is fantastic.
But you had that, all those early albums. You had, because the players, there's incredible lists of players. And also, I've got to say, there's a couple of bass players who are amazing, who I can't find on Wikipedia or anywhere.
Steve Gelfand, I think you're talking about.
Yeah.
He was known as Fonts. He was actually from Philadelphia, and he played in our band originally, then moved to New York and became a fairly successful session player. But we had Gordon Edwards on bass,
right.
And
then you had Lee. You had Lee Sklar.
Lee Sklar, but that was in the 70s. That was out in LA. Yeah.
I got to know that album in 75 or 76 at Abandoned Luncheonette.
Right.
And to the point where we all and then She's Gone was a hit, but not over here. It was only in America it was a hit in 76, wasn't it?
Well,
because we all thought that, or I certainly thought when Bigger Than Both of Us came out, I thought that was the album after Abandoned Luncheonette.
Right.
So,
but also, sorry, wasn't Tavares
Tavares did it, and
that's the version I knew first.
That became a number one R&B record with Tavares. We released She's Gone 3 times. It was released in 73 with a band Luncheonette. Then Tavares came out with it. We released it again. It still wasn't a big hit. Then it wasn't until after Sarah Smile and Rich Girl that Atlantic Records decided to re-release it yet again.
Like Life on Mars in Hunky Dory.
Right. That's when it came out. But
also just that sounds later than 73. I mean, it's so. I mean, Arif Mardin, he was kind of like the Trevor Horn
Let's
of the
face
day.
it.
When
Let's
you
face it.
The
It's
arrangement,
from that,
the arrangement is incredible.
that. Well, because also when you look at then he's the guy who did Cupid and Psyche, the Scritti Politti record, which is, but it's still the same genius.
He was a kind of a true musician, meaning he didn't care about genres, he didn't care about styles, he didn't care about what was current or happening at the moment. He just heard it as pure music, and whatever he treated the song, he served the song with the accompaniment that it needed. That was his genius, and I think. I learned so much from him, and I think to this day, I'd like to think that when I do a session in Nashville, I kind of conduct it the same way that he conducted our Abandoned Luncheonette sessions.
Yeah, and what he did as well, which is on that album, was his stereo placing was so beautiful. I mean, for a start, 1 minute you've got the strings on the left-hand side, you've got the backing vocals only on the right-hand side, but he separated you two guys as singers as well. There was sometimes on some tracks, this stereo, you'll be on one side and Daryl will be on the other side. So there is this feeling of a two-pronged attack from you. Because I sometimes wonder in those early days if you ever thought, why am I here? I'm a front man. And Daryl might have thought the same. You were both occupying the same space.
Yes. Yeah, well, if you...
Or was it Everly Brothers?
It's like the Persuaders.
But the thing is,
you can never tell
if you saw the equipment we were working on, and we were working on the original console with the Bakelite, pots. Wow. I mean, this was, it was pretty basic stuff,
Wow.
And our engineer on those records was Gene Paul, was Les Paul's son. So
what is it with you and people's sons?
I don't know. I like to. It's like being a vampire. You got to have the younger blood going.
But when you go into doing the third album, you don't keep going with Arif. You use Christopher.
No, that was Todd Rundgren.
No, it's Todd Rundgren. Oh, Todd Rundgren. Yeah, we got a real. This is what I love.
Of course, I always seem to forget about War Babies.
You cover all bases. This is what's fantastic, which one isn't really aware of until you look back on it.
War Babies is like a prog album at times.
It is. That was Daryl and Todd really just kind of going nuts. If you look at the first three albums, Whole Oats was the first one, very singer-songwriter acoustic. Yeah. Then Abandoned Luncheonette, still acoustic-esque, but a little bit more, obviously more sophisticated. Then you take War Babies, like you said, almost like a prog album. If you combine all those three things, that's what became our original sound. It was almost like a three-album step process to find a sound. And then it came together on the Silver album when we went to California with Chris Bond.
Image-wise, was that quite a brave thing to do?
Because we all remember the Silver cover, right?
Yeah.
You two,
which of course we love over here, and that's for Ziggy, all the
Yeah, well, it was the moment. It was the time. It was like we're living in Greenwich Village. If you look at the album covers, Rick Derringer, the Stones, Bowie, and and the same guy who did all those covers was the same guy who did the Silver album cover. His name Pierre LaRoche.
Yeah.
He was a very flamboyant stylist. Let's put it that way. And I remember we had one meeting with him, and we said, our album covers were very artsy fartsy, and there was nothing going on. The record company wanted us to be on the cover. He said, "I will immortalize you."
Yeah. Because he did the makeup on Aladdin Sane and Pin Up.
He did all the makeup and all that stuff. So it was just that thing that was happening, the glam rock thing that was happening, especially in New York City at the time.
That, I think, was one of the reasons why kids were starting to carry that album around. I remember in the 70s.
Yeah, no, you absolutely, because it's such a statement.
It is a statement. It's the only album cover anyone ever asked me about. So
and you have your first hit on that, really? Don't you?
Yeah, well, that was Sarah Smile.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And was it whose song was Sarah Smile? Was that
Daryl wrote the majority of it. We collaborated on the lyrics.
Because there was a female writer coming in as well.
Not at that
time.
But it was Sarah Allen who later started writing.
I tell you the one.
Did she just write with you, with Daryl, or was she a
with
writer?
both of us?
Writer?
With both of us.
No, but I mean, in
Well,
the wider world.
She was no, she never wrote with anyone else that I know of. She may have. She was just in the apartment all the time while we were working, and so she was just listening, and the process, I guess, just kind of, she absorbed the process, and then she started throwing out ideas.
Wow.
Lyric ideas, and eventually.
So sister did as well. She came into the
Well,
mix.
that was even later, a bit later. Her sister was she really wanted to be an artist, and she was very.
This is why you don't want other people in the room when you're writing.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
annoying. Why don't you?
Right.
I tell you what we missed, Guy. That beautiful video that I sent you last night.
Oh my God!
Of She's
Yes,
Gone.
The She's Gone video.
From the first, in those days, okay, so it's 1970.
Well, the video hasn't really been invented.
No
has
one
it?
does videos, really.
It was my finest moment, I will say.
It's on YouTube.
I'm so happy with that.
tell
I'm
us
so
about
proud
it.
of that.
Yeah,
What happened?
Yeah, we
Okay.
want to hear your take, and then we'll give you our take.
Okay. Yeah, there was no such thing as music videos. All right. We were at She's Gone was starting to get some radio play. So the record company wanted us to promote it in Philadelphia. Now, Philadelphia has this teenage dance tradition, bandstand and all that kind of stuff. There was a teenage dance show at the New Jersey Shore that was run by a local DJ. And they wanted us to go on the show and lip sync our single, She's Gone. Now, you know the song. You can't lip sync that song while teenagers are dancing. I mean, it was just absurd. And we were like, no, we're not going to do that. And they said, you have to do it. You're getting radio play. You need to do it. And we said, well, how about if we just go and perform it on, at the TV station, and then they can play it during the show? And they said, okay. Well, they didn't realize what we were going to do. So we took some of our furniture from our apartment. Our road manager, we rented a devil suit for him. Sarah Allen is the woman who walks through. Daryl was wearing a bathrobe, and I rented
high heel shoes.
Yeah, big wedgies.
Yeah, wedgies.
And I rented a penguin suit. And my sister, who was a film student at Temple University, came along to direct it. So we wrote this half-assed script, and we show up with all this stuff. And the people at the TV station, they thought we were just going to come and sing, and they had no idea. And they were like, they got really pissed off. And my sister, who was only 18, she was trying to direct all these crusty old union, stage guys. And so we did it. And after we did it, they refused to play it. And in fact, they said that we were banned from Philadelphia radio.
What?
Yeah,
From radio because of a TV spot.
Because
That's
of
harsh.
They were
our
connected.
irreverence to whatever
right.
whatever
But
their.
you were way ahead of the curve at that point, weren't you?
I'd say we were pretty far ahead of the curve.
We'd recommend anyone to go.
I
and look at
absolutely,
this.
I agree.
It's,
I think it's the
like
best.
it's like a music video directed by Samuel Beckett. It's kind of like Waiting for Godot or something.
It's absurdism at its finest.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And Daryl's smoking, and they're looking incredibly bored and weird, and it's brilliant.
And then at the end, during the end of the guitar riff that goes through the modulation, at the end, I have the penguin suit, so I have these big flippers. So I flip the flippers over the guitar and mock the guitar solo. Oh,
She's Gone has more modulations than.
yeah. Well, that's why I like to joke. We got
all of them, I think.
We got all our modulations out in one song. We never had to do it again. So.
But it's fantastic the way it keeps stepping up like that,
yeah.
stepping, and then Daryl comes in with that ridiculous falsetto.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Also, I'm just checking. that is a Rudy's t-shirt. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
I was just there.
48th.
I was just there.
What do you mean you were just there?
Well, I did some press
It's
in
gone.
New York.
But it's gone, isn't it? Have they reopened?
No, they moved to move down to Soho,
Oh, you're kidding.
down to the Village. Yeah.
Because I couldn't.
Well, I used to go there on 48th Street.
Well, of course you did. I mean,
And in fact, John Sir, I don't know if you know John Sir.
yeah.
Pensa Sir, they made the guitars.
Yeah.
He used to repair my guitars back in the early days. And now he makes his own. He makes great guitars.
because
on his own.
because it was a Guitar Center who took it over, wasn't it? No, it was
No.
Sam Ash.
Yeah, well, it was right next to Sam Ash. He had his own shop next to Sam Ash on 48th Street.
Right.
what was the first band you saw live?
Bill Haley and the Comets.
Oh wow! You know, my parents.
When I
went
was
to-
4.
My parents
Seriously.
went to see them. That was one of their first nights out when he came to London. How was it?
Well, I don't know. I was 4. I think it was great.
Who took you along? Your dad?
My mom. Well, I was born in New York City. We moved to Pennsylvania, right outside of Philadelphia, when I was 4. And one of the first things I remember was going to an amusement park, and a little small amusement park outside of Philadelphia. And there was a band shell, and I heard live music for the first time, and it happened to be Bill. And I remember running down to the front of the stage. The stage was probably only, 3 feet high or 2 feet high or whatever. And I remember just being there, and then the bass player who was playing an upright bass, he rode it like a horse.
Oh, yeah.
That was that rockabilly thing, right?
Yeah.
And to me, at 4 years old, that was it. I was like, okay, this is great. And, for me, I think that's how it kind of all started.
You nearly got a track on the Rocky movie from that Silver album, didn't you?
Yeah, Sylvester Stallone, I was in a band with his brother Frank in Philadelphia.
Oh my God, his brother
60s.
Frank.
Yeah, Frank.
Have you seen there's a TV
show?
series now
Yeah.
on the Stallones?
Frank's
Frank's in it.
Frank's a trip. He's always been a trip.
Unbelievable.
And he wanted to use Grounds for Separation. And I think, in films they take temp music. They put temp music in just to kind of get them through, and sometimes they can't beat it, and they end up having to.
It's actually the nightmare for a composer when I used to do it,
Right.
which is because you get absolutely married to the temp dub, don't you?
Right, and then they ask you to try to write something in, and I don't know what happened with that and why they didn't use it, but yeah, you're right. They did. Sylvester Stallone did want to use that song, and it turned out it didn't work out.
Yeah, because it's Philadelphia, isn't it?
It's for the day, exactly.
Sure.
The whole
I mean, do you find? The one thing I love was whenever I go to the museum in Philadelphia, the amount of people having their picture taken on the steps with their arms up.
Yeah, running up. And at this time as well, Tommy Mottola, who's super famous, obviously in the music business, he becomes your manager, doesn't he?
Well, it had to do with us. Earlier, I said that this other guy who was handling us in Philadelphia would take us to New York so we could audition for publishing companies, and we went to Chapel Music, and what it was is basically he was trying to sell his existing catalog to the publishing company and bring us along as the future. Well, you can buy my old stuff, but here's my new writers, and they come along with the deal. And during one of the auditions, Tommy Mottola, who was working at Chapel Music at the time, he was not a manager. He was a song plugger, basically. Afterwards, he
must be the same age, right? Something like that.
We're exactly the same age. He kind of took us aside and kind of off into the corner and said, "What are you guys doing with this guy here? You guys can do better." And we're like, "Really? Well, what do you mean?" He says, "Let's talk." So basically what happened was we left Philadelphia, moved to New York. Mottola started handling us, and he was still working at Chapel Music. And then eventually he became our manager.
Oh, so you were the first act he ever managed?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
He owes us a lot, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
I would.
You actually wrote a song about him as well, didn't you?
Gino, the manager? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I like that the way they did that. There was on Band and Luncheonette. There's a track which is called "The Stewardess."
Well, that was I wrote that. That's I wrote that about
leaving Las Vegas. Las Vegas Turnaround.
Las Vegas Turnaround.
So good.
So good.
Oh, thanks. I had never heard that term. Sarah Allen, who later became Daryl's girlfriend, she was a charter stewardess. They were not flight attendant in those days. Have to be politically correct. And she said something about they were going to do a Las Vegas turnaround. I said, "What's that?" She goes, "Well, we fly a bunch of gamblers out to Las Vegas, then we turn around and come back." So the phrase was so evocative.
It sounds like a jazz thing, doesn't it? Hey, let's do the Las Vegas turnaround.
Exactly. Yeah.
Gambling falls to the Holy Land, Las Vegas.
Yes.
Sometimes she's here and sometimes she can't be found. Turn around.
There you go.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So then, the next album, Bigger Than Both of Us, it obviously has Rich Girl on it, but I just want to have a shout out for Back Together Again, because I think that's you writing for Earth, Wind and Fire, really. I mean,
that song. I was on a plane ride and I was sitting next to Frankie Valli. I know, this is crazy.
Not his son.
No, Frankie Valli. Yes, sitting next to Frankie Valli, and of course, I was 4 Seasons. I thought those records were amazing.
Oh, yeah, cool.
And we were talking on the plane ride, and he was talking because he had, there were drug issues with him and his family and all sorts of stuff. If you know the story, and he was talking about how he was getting it back together again, that he was going to get it back together again, and I was like, oh. Okay, and my songwriting antenna, of course, is always up. And then if you if you look at the words, it says the actual song says
It's
he's
right,
back
that's right, yeah.
together again. He's still got the groove, you know.
Yes. And it's got that style of Frankie Valli kind
A
of
little
song,
bit, yeah,
doesn't it?
yeah. But it's also got the Philly thing in there too. Yeah.
That's it. So if you're ever sitting next to a songwriter and he suddenly goes into a daze, you need a percentage of whatever he's thinking about.
Right, exactly.
But you actually just reminded me of a gag, something that Michael came to with, the sadly recently departed David Sanborn, who was once, I can't remember what, he was in some band setup, and I think it was in Japan or somewhere. And a journalist said to him, "So how long have you been together?" And he said, "Well, I've been together for about a year now."
right.
But Rich Girl was a continuation of. I mean, was this your? That wasn't a number. Did I get to number one, Rich Girl?
Yes.
So this was your first.
That was the first number one.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the first.
Do you remember recording that track and how it felt?
Yeah, I remember recording track. You know, but I really remember more Daryl writing it, because Daryl wrote that, and I remember him playing it for me for the first time, and I knew immediately it was just something, obviously very special, and. Just the whole, the intro. Chris Bond had a lot to do with the recording of that. And we did that out in L.A. And we had here. We were talking about earlier all the amazing
Super
studio
posh
musicians.
Yeah.
So it was just one of those. Every once in a while, you catch lightning in a bottle. That was one of those moments.
But he wrote that with Sarah Allen? Or not?
No, he wrote it on his own.
Now you're number one, without MTV happening. Maybe not many people even know what you look like. Can I ask really? Was there an idea that maybe you were a black band?
Some people thought in the early days, especially with She's Gone, especially after Tavares had the number one R&B hit with it. A lot of people thought we were black.
Also,
but we
it's
got
not even you. It's just the arrangements are so authentically.
We had acceptance on black radio from the very, very beginning, and I think that's something that I don't think we get enough credit for. That that we broke a lot of barriers in terms of us being on black radio, and perhaps I'd like to think, having white radio accept some more black artists as well.
Yeah, I mean, the same happened to my band. I mean, early days. I remember Chant Number One came out. We went to New York and we were invited onto Kiss Radio, and we went in there, and it was like.
Oops.
Maybe we made a mistake here. You guys,
right?
And we did Soul Train as well, which I think you guys
we
did as well. I think, and I remember saying at the time, "There's only Bowie and Elton and Hall and Oates that have done it before us."
Don Cornelius.
Yeah, Don Cornelius.
It was a trip, right?
He was great. He interviewed the band afterwards, and he said, "You guys all brothers?" And we said, "No, we're not, because you all look the same." But what was your audience though when you were playing live? Who were these guys when you?
Our live shows? Our audience was predominantly white, but it was mixed. It was mixed.
There was a bit of a wilderness few albums. That
well,
came
I want to get into
that,
that, because then you get
which
this.
is a shame,
No, it was about. It was
I think
actually
for your path. It just means that what's great is now we look back and every box has been ticked. I mean, I'm sorry, Robert Fripp.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
George Harrison.
Yeah.
I mean, that's suddenly you become, you're the
on Beauty on a Backstreet was that? No, that was our Red Ledge.
Red Ledge,
yeah.
Yeah, Red Ledge.
I guess it's your new wave album.
Well,
inverted commas,
what happened was we had these hits. We had Sarah Smile, then we had Rich Girl, and then She's Gone, the re-release of She's Gone, which gave us essentially 3 hits in a row and put us way up there in terms of live shows, bigger venues, and things like that. But then it kind of, Beauty on a Backstreet that's my word. I hate that record. I mean, of all the records we ever did, to me, that's my least favorite. Because
it's almost like the difficult second album.
It wasn't because
it was difficult eighth or something.
Yeah. it was because of our relationship with Chris Bond, who had produced the first 2, the Silver Album.
But because Chris Bond, he's very much your producer.
Well, he was in our band.
He
was in our band in Philadelphia. He went to California and established himself as a producer, and he had all the good studios, all the good studio musicians. So it was a good move for us to go there. But as time went on, and with the success that we had, he was a flawed individual. He had problems, and the drugs and everything really took him down. So during the making of Beauty on a Backstreet, I mean, there was one day where he literally collapsed on the control board, and we had to call the EMTs and rush them to the hospital, and it was just so that colors my whole, the thing. And then we had to figure out something after that, and that's when we did Red Ledge.
But was Tommy managing you still at the time?
Yeah, he was managing us the whole time. Yeah,
right. Because Red Ledge, as the guy was saying, had all these wonderful guest guitarists.
Well,
appeared.
Fripp does sound great. I do love Fripp's part.
Well, and I get their connection with Todd Rundgren because he's, if I can ever say his surname properly,
you can't ever. It comes up
Rundgren,
right?
Because his style of music is very similar to what you do, isn't it?
In a way,
it's kind of weird that he did the prog album with you.
In a way, he was from Philadelphia area, right? So there you go. You have that. The thing about the Red Ledge was that, believe it or not, it was the first album that David Foster ever produced.
That's right. It was David. Yeah.
Who we all know from, Whitney Houston, The Bodyguard, and whatever. All
he had never,
which
is so ironic because it's because you would expect. Well, the poshest power ballads imaginable. But
and you know what it was like in those days when you were an artist. The record company had to have a babysitter, a musical babysitter. So you had to have a producer. We weren't quite there, ready to produce ourselves, although we probably should have in retrospect.
Yeah, because ironically, that's when your hits came.
Exactly. But so they assigned David Foster to us, and he had never produced anyone. He wasn't the David Foster that we all know now, and so we started bringing in all sorts of people. I met George Harrison through Sir Jackie Stewart because I'm a racing fan. I hung out with in the Formula One world, and George was in L.A. at the time, and so I said, "Hey, do you want to play on the record?" And I thought, well, give it a shot, right? And he said, yeah. He said, but only if I can just be in the band. He goes, I don't want to do anything special. I said, no solos, no slide guitar solos. And he said, no, I just want to be in the band because he knew we had an amazing band. We had adopted Elton's Yellow Brick Road band of Roger Pope, Caleb Quay, and Kenny Passarelli.
Oh wow!
So we had a wonderful rhythm section, and then we had all these various great guests as well. George.
But in a way, the focus was in the wrong place, wasn't it? Because instead of being on the songwriting, where you were, it was on the guests and.
Yeah, the song. I thought there were some interesting songs. I think "It's a Laugh." Here again, another song that Daryl wrote is an amazing song. Really musically adventurous, really cool.
But didn't David Foster play you a song that he thought you might like?
Yeah,
go on.
Boy, you did your homework.
Only because I love that song.
Yeah, when we first met David Foster, everyone was telling me, "Oh, he's the new guy. He'll be a great producer for you." We went over to his house, and he has beautiful grand piano, And David Foster's an incredible piano player. And so he said, "Well, he goes, I've got this song I think that I wrote for you guys, and I think he wrote it with Jay Graydon, guitar player." And he said, "I'll play it for you." So he sits down at the piano and he starts going, "Think, think, think, think something happened along the way." And we're like, we're going, nah, I don't think so.
Oh my God! After the love is gone.
So we turned down after the love is gone.
After the song is gone.
after our minds are gone.
But I mean, Earth, Wind and Fire. Just
I know.
What a
they crushed it, right?
Yeah.
And so that was.
But it wasn't like
probably
you to
not the best
other
idea.
people's songs. Well,
no,
unless they'd already been a hit.
Say, it's like hey, you got songs.
We were songwriters.
You got songs.
We were songwriters. We weren't thinking about playing other people's songs. But in retrospect, obviously, we should have recorded that.
So in a way, I suppose Voices is when.
Well, yeah,
this is 1980.
1980, and that's when you become you're definitive of. It's quite interesting because I think sound-wise. To me, you represent the pinnacle of the 70s. Everything that was great about the 70s, but then your real commercial stamp is the 80s,
and sounds very 80s.
And sounds very 80s. Like,
well,
textbook. You'll be in textbooks. Definitely.
What we were trying to do in the late 70s, when we didn't have a lot of commercial hits, we realized that relying on studio musicians was not going to cut it anymore, because that's all we had ever done throughout the whole decade. And what we wanted to do was develop a band who was good enough to play live and be in the studio with it. And then we felt we could capture the excitement and the energy of the live shows and bring it in and record it with it. Mm-hmm. And so the process started with Along the Red Ledge. And by the time we got to close to the 80s, we had developed a band that we felt comfortable with.
T-Bone.
Yeah, T-Bone and
I
G.E.
knew
Smith,
T-Bone,
Mickey
yeah.
Curry.
I mean,
And
that's a
that 80s
that's
band.
a posh band, man.
Yeah.
No,
He
no,
started
it's-
kicking
It's
his
a Saturday Night
Telecasters.
Live band.
Amazing band, yeah, amazing band. And so that's really what I think that was one of the most important components for the success that we had. And of course, we wrote some good songs as well, but that was the difference, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And we finally had enough clout to tell the record company that we didn't need a producer; we were going to do it ourselves. And
But it
everything
still
changed.
seems like a shyness that you've lost that loving feeling. It's like you still felt like you needed someone else's song on there when.
No, that happened after the fact. We had made the Voices album. We thought it was complete. You know how sometimes you make an album and you think it's finished, and then maybe it's not.
Yeah.
We in those days,
Well,
what
the
we
label
were-
doesn't think it's finished.
we had a listening party at Electric Lady Studios, and we had everyone come down. We had some radio people, we had management, record company, whatever, and we played the album, and we were really proud of it. We thought it was really good, and everybody was like, yeah, this is great. But when it was done, there was something we said, God, it feels like something's missing, and Daryl and I went to a little pizza place right near the studio afterwards, and we're sitting in there, and on the jukebox comes the Righteous Brothers, You Lost That Love and Feeling. And we said, oh, that's good, let's record that. And we literally went in the next day with the band and cut it in about 2 hours. And that was it, yeah.
Yeah, God, your biopics, that's going to be so cliched.
But Kiss on My List is on here, and
Yeah.
You make my dreams come
Yep.
true, and
Which,
of
by the
course-
way, wasn't a big hit, by the way.
Oh, really?
You Make My Dreams Come True. In fact, it wasn't even released in the UK as a single.
So in a way, I guess that was probably when the Greatest Hits album came out that everyone went.
No, it really.
No? Just-
You
just
Make My
we knew it.
Dreams took on a life of its own about 5 or 6 years ago with the movie 500 Days of Summer, and all these people started using it, and then now it's become massive. But it really wasn't as big as some of the other songs at the time.
You say that not being here, I'm quite interested. What was your relationship with the UK like through the 70s and early 80s? How important was it to you? Because it's interesting. Some Americans, it's really important.
Yeah,
Some,
it was very important.
especially because we got such a rich soul heritage in terms of what we listened to. We were all growing up on Motown and everything.
We came over for the first time in '74 and played the New Vic Theatre. We were an underground band in the UK.
Right.
We were like the underground secret from America that only the real hip people knew about, and it was amazing. So we were really accepted here, not as commercial hit makers, but as for our musical quality, I guess. So it's always been very important. Daryl's actually lived here in London for periods of time.
Yeah.
So it's a very strong connection.
Good.
Of course, Paul Young had a #1 off that album as well.
Right.
It was one of Daryl's songs. But,
we
Which
Can't You Go Away?
everyone thinks was a hit of yours, and it wasn't.
It
was
wasn't.
Yeah.
It was. In fact, it was the last song on the B side of the Voices album, and we recorded it. If you listen to our version, it's recorded like a Stax Volt. It sounds like could have been a Otis Redding song or a Sam Dave song. That's the style we went for. And to Paul Young's credit and his producers, they turned it into a really polished hit single. The way it was produced.
Well, they just stuck Pinot all over it, didn't they?
Yeah. That's not such a bad thing, is it?
Absolutely.
Let's talk about Private Eyes then. 'Cause
Okay.
the songs that are sitting on that album are just
Pretty good.
It's pretty good. I mean, it established. I mean, I remember as an artist in the '80s thinking, well, this is the benchmark. Yeah. These are the sound we
were hitting our stride. We were hitting our stride, and with that's when what I had mentioned earlier about developing a band that we could take into the studio, because we had been on the road, we had been on tour, we were on fire in terms of a live band. You know what? I mean, there's nothing better than playing live, and if you can take that energy and immediately transfer that into the studio.
Were you
There's
getting to
nothing
work
better than
songs out on the road?
that. No.
Oh, so,
No,
yeah, 'cause
but it's just the tightness of the band, the energy,
Yeah,
the musical communication, and then no, we didn't. We never introduced new music on tour. We always played what we had, and then we would write, and then we would record.
And you'd play your songs to Daryl, he'd play. Was it just the two of you who made the decision, or would you play your songs to where you're producing it?
There was no producer. We just try to come up with the best songs we could.
But I can't go for that. That's, you wrote that together, right?
No, sort of. Everyone had left the studio. I remember this very well because it was really magic. Everyone had left the studio except Daryl, and myself, and the engineer. And we were just kind of talking, sitting around, and he went out to the keyboard. We had this little thing called a Roland CompuRhythm, which is
the coloured buttons on the
with
front.
the coloured buttons, right? Rock 1, Rock 2, Samba, or Bossa Nova, or whatever. Yeah, the little square one with wood fascia. Yeah. And it was sitting on. We used to use it not so much for its sound, but we used it for tempo. A lot of times, it's like we'd make sure we dialed in our tempo just right, and once we had the tempo, then of course the live drummer would kind of take over. And it was sitting on top of the keyboard, and I remember he just hit Rock 1, and that's that sound. And he started to play the bass line on the keyboard, and he said, "Hey, check this out." And I think it was an idea that he had been marinating on. I don't really know. I don't know. I don't think he came up with it on the spot. I think it was an idea that he had.
Can I say, because this is a little technical point, I'm trying to think, which year was this exactly? It was
83-ish?
83, yeah. Because the last three notes or something of the bass line basically sync up with Billie Jean.
Well, there's a reason for that.
Oh. So I wasn't being
because Michael said that he would practice his choreography in his mirror in his bedroom to "I Can't Go For That."
Oh my God!
And then he said, "I like that groove. I like that groove." So it's no coincidence.
Wow!
How many people pick up on that though? Huh?
You do.
It is a great groove. It is.
It's a great groove.
And you just played guitar along with that, and
actually, it was really Daryl's vision, that song. He had that bass line going, and then he actually said, "Hey, John, get your guitar." He goes, and he hummed a melody, which I did in this muted, with my muted Strat, and I did it direct too. We didn't even use an amp. It was through the board, because that's why it was just a dry Strat, there's a sound to it, and and I went ding 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 ding. Yeah.
That's so beautifully arranged. The way it alternates between the notes and then goes to that high one a third time.
Yeah.
But didn't I think Stevie Wonder had something off of you guys as well? There's a bit of Man-Eater, and it sounds like
the Man-Eater thing is basically that's a Motown groove.
So Jameson groove.
Yeah, it's a Motown groove basically. Yeah.
But not to take anything away from
no. But what's amazing is that Stevie and Michael, Motown, true Motown artists, were stealing from you.
I think creative borrowing is a better way to describe it.
Let's talk about a tiny bit. I just think we should hit upon some of you've done collaborative songwriting with other artists.
Yes.
I'd be very intrigued as to how you found yourself writing with an Australian artist.
Iva Davies.
Iva Davies.
From Ice House, yeah. I met Iva in the bar at the Mayflower Hotel in New York City. It was the late 80s, but Daryl and I weren't recording at the time. And I don't know what I was doing. I was in New York, whatever. And I was aware of Ice House. I really liked the band. And we started talking at the bar. And, we talked about, whatever. And he said, I want to make a new album. Would you be interested in writing? And I said, well, yeah. I said, I'd love to come to Australia because I love Australia. He said, well, how about if I bring you down to Sydney and we'll try to write something? I said, oh, this is great. Yeah, perfect. So he flew me down, and he had this little studio behind the house that he was living in. It was like a little garage. But we didn't come up with anything. And it was a little frustrating, and I felt
that's a long way to go. It's a long way to go to not come up with something.
In that situation.
I felt guilty. I felt like I had to deliver, and we didn't. And so one day he was learning how to windsurf at the time, and he said, "Well, let's just go to the beach." I said, "Yeah, that sounds good." So he went windsurfing, and I was sitting on the beach. And obviously the topless beaches in Sydney. I was right in the middle of it, and as I was sitting there, this absolutely gorgeous gal comes walking toward me, completely topless, with these incredible blue eyes. And so I was trying to make sure I was staring at her eyes, and I was thinking, oh oh. And this electric blue popped into my mind, and I went, oh, okay. Whew. I said, wait a minute, this might work. And then I started humming this kind of Philly melody, you know. And came back to the house. He liked it. We wrote the song, and boom.
It wasn't Frankie Valli who was walking up to you, though.
No.
No, but that's so nice to hear, because I never knew that. I never knew it was just a personal connection. It was one of the things I assumed, sort of the label. Someone went, "Hey, you know what you should do? You should write with John Oates."
No.
That's really nice.
It's just a personal thing. Yeah,
for our listeners who don't know,
extremely
obviously, I was in Ice House for 7 years.
So this is going out after you've done a show. Unfortunately, we're not promoting it because you would have done it at the Albert Hall, right?
Yeah.
Oh, how was it?
It was
metaphorically.
It was a blur. Can I just put a little backstory to this?
Please.
All right. About 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, I have not done a lot of shows in Europe, but I really wanted to. And I'm good friends with an amazing artist named Beth Hart. I don't know if you know Beth Hart. She's fabulous, and she's very popular in Europe. So her manager, I talked to her manager, and I said, any chance I could go over and play for her crowd? Because I felt her crowd would really get my new music. And so we put it together. I went over and did a whole European tour. We played Belgium and Holland and France and Germany, and it was great. And it worked really well. And the producer, the promoter of the show, of the tour, really liked what I was doing. And I told him, I said, look, I'd really like to make some inroads in Europe. He said, I think this will be really great. Promoters liked you, crowd liked you. You know, let's come back a year from now and we'll do it, right? I said, okay. So we planned another tour where I would be headlining. And when I had the tour dates, I got an offer from Richard Marx's folks about maybe doing some shows with him. And I said, well, I can't really do the shows, but I am going to do a European tour, and I could do Royal Albert Hall because that was on my bucket list. And it's great. So I signed a contract to play Royal Albert Hall. And in between the time I signed the contract and right now, the German promoter who I was working with died. He dropped dead. And his partners sued him. And the whole European misadventure fell apart. And so now I was committed to playing one show with Richard Marx at the Royal Albert Hall, and I had the contract. I had to do it.
Oh, wow. So just coming for one show?
Yeah.
With a band?
No, just me.
Oh, okay.
So it's Richard's show tomorrow night?
Yeah, it's Richard's show. And I have a percussionist friend of mine here in London. So it'll just be acoustic guitar and percussion.
Did you do any Hall & Oates songs?
No, not really.
It's mostly your own solo
It's
stuff.
all my own, yeah. Well, okay.
Well, you got quite a few albums. You got,
Sorry, by the way, my slot started out at 60 minutes. Then it went to 50. Then it went to 45. Then it went to 30. And I said, this is ridiculous. I said, I'm coming to London, all the way over to London.
Well, you're coming to London to do Rockonteurs. Yeah. And you're doing a show.
That's why I came. No, that's why I came. That's why I came. And so I have a friend who has a wonderful club here called Coco. And I said, hey, listen, I've got to come all the way to London to play for 30 minutes. How about we do a private show for your members? So I'm doing a private show at Coco for 2 nights, and that'll be fun. So yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the new album sounds so beautiful, very personal, obviously as well.
Yes, very much so.
Is this the kind of style you think going forward now for you?
Well, it is for now. I have a lot of very eclectic tastes. I like all sorts of things.
But this journey goes back to because Arkansas, which I think is a fabulous album.
Thank you. Arkansas kind of set the template for that. I've really during the Arkansas album, I really was infatuated and really interested in tracing the history of the American popular song. It really got to me, and I started doing a lot of research because originally the Arkansas album was supposed to be a tribute just to Mississippi John Hurt. I was just going to do his music, and I recorded a few things, and I can play all that stuff. And I thought, why am I doing this? It's already done. I'm never going to do it as, it's never going to be the same. Then I had this really weird revelation. One day I was in the studio and I said, but these songs are so cool and they're always performed with an acoustic guitar and a voice. That's the setting, right? I said, I wonder what would happen if I put a band together and we played the exact same thing, except with the context of a rhythm section. But I put a really weird rhythm section together with a pedal steel, mandolin, cello, percussion, bass, and another guitar. And I said, I'm just going to play exactly what I was going to play anyway on, the traditional Mississippi John Hurt finger picking style. And but we'll see what happens. And these players that I chose were just the best of the best. And what they brought to the table was amazing. We recorded one song, and my engineer turned to me and said, John, I don't know what this is, but you should just keep doing it. So now we had this sonic kind of template, and I said, well, this can't restrict this to just Mississippi John Hurt songs. So I started. I actually looked into what was being played on the jukeboxes in Mississippi in the late 1920s and 30s, and I was blown away. There was cowboy songs by Gene Autry. There was stride piano, ragtime songs, all this really eclectic and varied styles of music. And I'm thinking, well, this is what Mississippi John Hurt was listening to.
Right.
And I said, well, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to play those songs, except in this context with this new band. And that's what turned into the Arkansas album. And in doing so, I learned a lot about the kind of the history of how these early American popular songs kind of developed.
Like a sort of recreating sort of Alan Lomax character, aren't you?
Well, it kind of in a way. And what the big revelation that I had was that a lot of people, especially younger generation, they think that pop songs started with rock and roll, but there were million-selling records back in the 1920s. Mm-hmm. I think and what I realized was pop music only exists because of its association with the invention of radio and the invention of the phonograph machine. Because without those two things, there's no such thing as pop music. Because pop means popular. The only way something can be popular is if a lot of people hear it. Prior to radio and phonograph, the only way you could hear live music.
They bought the music, didn't they?
You bought a sheet music.
Music publishers were sheet music.
And you had to play a piano in your house or something like that, or you could go hear someone perform. So it was fascinating to me to think that, this is this kind of amazing, marriage of these technology, and to this day, that's what pop music's all about. It's all about this marriage of technology and
and its data storage formats like the LP.
Right.
Became the LP because that was it, it was the length they came up with because it's actually was it the optimum length for one movement of a symphony. Yeah. That's where the album.
Right. Well, the CompuRhythm.
Yeah.
Thank you for
and Pro Tools.
Thank you so
and
much
so on
for
and so
coming
forth. Yeah,
John.
Oh no, thanks. This
good luck with the album.
It was wonderful. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Really enjoyed it, John. Thank you so much.
All right.
And thank you for
the music. My God, thank you for the music. Seriously.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we forgot to ask him about Live Aid. because they actually played with the Temptations.
They played with the Temptations, and they were Jagger's backing band.
Were they at Live Aid?
Yeah.
Daryl and John. And
and their band, T-Bone and Mickey, and all those guys.
I don't remember what Jagger did.
You'd think, no, I don't.
Because I know
Tina Turner, he did a song with Tina Turner.
Keith and Ronnie played with Dylan, didn't they? And it was all
loosely
wrong. But lots probably we'd have. Everyone's going to be going. Bringing back for a part two.
Well, you can't do everything. You can't do everything. Maybe this is a part two.
Anyway, it's a lovely album reunion, so please give it a
in fact, also, I would also thoroughly recommend Arkansas, which is where this journey began from. That's really what he was talking about. That's a great.
Until next week, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from me.
Rockonteurs is produced by Gimme Sugar Productions for Warner Music Group UK.